Today's show sponsor is Sienna Dawn Media Integrated Marketing Agency. Sienna Dawn Media is more than just a marketing agency. They're your partners in progress. Their mission is simple: to alleviate marketing bandwidth, allowing creative business owners to focus on what they set out to do: create. Sienna Dawn Media empowers creatives to thrive without the burden of managing their own social media and marketing campaigns. So if you're ready to set sail toward new horizons, let Sienna Dawn Media chart the course and steer your business toward success. Visit siennadawnmedia.com.
Blah, 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 blah.
Welcome to the Our Forever Smiles podcast, a podcast created to support mothers of children who were born with clefts and those who love them. I'm your host, Laura Arroyo, and I'm also a mother of a daughter who was born with a surprise cleft palate. I know the challenges you face every day. Whether you have just learned the difficult news of your baby's cleft lip or palate, you're in the midst of pre-op or post-op, or you're an OG cleft mom, this podcast is for you. In a weekly conversation, we will talk about everything from feeding and speech therapy to surgery and school. We'll share tips from guest experts and advocates, and even share a little joy in the process. You can listen to Our Forever Smiles wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned. Welcome back to the Our Forever Smiles Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast. I am Laura Arroyo. Before we jump into this episode, I would like to invite you to join this community to hear conversations with other cleft moms and advocates that will help you feel supported along your journey. All I want you to do is click on the follow or subscribe button. I love your support, and it's incredible to see us all come together. And we are just getting started. As a note, we are not medical doctors, and we do not intend for you to use information that we share here as medical advice. We are parents and advocates who love our children, and we are sharing our own personal experiences. Today, I'm really excited because we have two guests on the podcast for the first time ever. We have Teresa, who is cleft affected and also has a daughter who is cleft affected. She is an advocate for the Ensuring Lasting Smiles Act and an advocate for Smile Train. Welcome, Teresa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We also have Corinne here today, who is a part of the Cleft Community Advisory Council at Smile Train. And she's a wife and mother to two amazing boys. And she's also a return guest to the Our Forever Smiles podcast. So welcome, Corinne.
Thank you. Good to be back. Good to see you again, Laura.
Thank you both. I'm so excited to have you. First, I just wanted to share, so I met Teresa at CleftCon as well. And I actually ran into you in the elevator. You remember that?
Me? No, I don't.
Yeah, so we were in the elevator, and I knew you didn't. I'm new in the cleft world, right? So I knew you didn't know, but I'm like, "Oh, hi, Teresa, nice to meet you." And I could tell that you didn't know who I was, and you were probably thinking, like, "How in the world does she know me?" But I so immersed into the world of cleft, essentially, because my own daughter was diagnosed with a cleft palate, and it was a complete shocker to me. And so since I was able to cope with those feelings of my daughter being born with that, which was like a year later, I decided to start my own advocacy journey. And I don't know how much you all know about your impact, but I see your faces all the time. And you all are certainly, when people look on Facebook or different places about cleft, you all are the faces that appear and that are the loudest voices in this space. So I really want to commend both of you just for the work that you're doing. And I know that it obviously is like a passion, and it's like life work, right? Not only is it vulnerable for you to have to retell your story to so many people, it can be exhausting sometimes. It could be really hard to share and to talk about. And yeah, I just want to thank you all for doing that. So, Teresa, I'm going to actually start with you because I think it's so important to talk about where you all started and just like why we brought your two voices together and where your journeys collide. So you shared that you are cleft affected, but you also have a cleft affected daughter. And as I read that, I was so curious because, of course, like I've seen your face everywhere and that type of thing. And I know you just from being in a part of the Smile Train stuff. And so, is your daughter an advocate as well, or how has she felt about sharing her own experience?
She is not. She's not even behind the scenes. She doesn't want any part of it. She's happy for what I do, but she just has gotten her teeth fixed. She's 37 and she had to have a lot of dental work. And she's just now getting on Facebook and smiling. But
Right.
she doesn't discuss Smile Train with me or what she went through as a child, although I really protected her. She's never discussed bullying with me or anything.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
In other words, I don't think she went through, I know she didn't go through what I went through because I didn't allow it. I wouldn't let that happen. I put her in private school and I was really involved in her care. So, we're
Yeah, you would think it'd be the opposite, that because you protected her so much that she may felt, I guess, more of a sense of pride in it versus obviously if you've spoken about bullying and things like that, you would think that you would be the one that would be like one that's quieter
yeah.
or shy away from speaking about it, but that's not the case. When did you start your advocacy journey?
When probably about 5 years ago, I received a phone call, I'm sorry, an email from Small Train asking if I would like to be a volunteer on CCAC. I don't know how they got my name. I don't know how that happened, but it just happened out of the blue. And then that is when I became involved because I didn't know anybody except my daughter who was cleft affected. Nobody in this
Mm.
world. So I didn't know what people went through.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah. And so, what do you remember from growing up yourself and the differences between the way that your care was handled versus your daughter's care?
My parents were not involved with if I came home crying because the bullies bothered me. My mother, I think she didn't wanna recognize that, and so I had to deal with it myself, and surgery has come a long way. I was born in 1960. When my daughter came along in 1987, surgery had come a long way, and it's even come longer than that. Um, so I protected my daughter a lot better than my mother protected me.
Yeah. And did you is she your only daughter?
She's my only cleft affected daughter. I have a son. He's not cleft affected.
Oh, gotcha. And so, I guess then my thought is, were you hesitant to have
Yeah.
children? Did you know that? Because I think now what they say is there's like a 4% chance, like if it's isolated, that you can pass it down to a
Mhm.
child. And is it genetic in your family or was this isolated and random?
It is genetic in my family. I forgot. I have 2 cousins that have now deceased. They were born with the cleft lip and palate. They were twins, and they were also born deaf. So, I had forgot about them, but they were, younger than they were I was born in '60 and they were born in the '70s. So I had forgot about them. They also had a rare medical condition that was named after them because nobody had ever heard of it. I
Yeah.
was very hesitant, and then somebody told me one day, she said, "They may can find a cure for cancer, or that person may your child may find a cure for the reason for cleft lip and palate or something." And then when I met my husband, I fell in love with him, and we decided to have children. And I'll have to share this when I had a C-section. Well, they took ultrasounds, and back in the 80s, those weren't really good. So when I had an ultrasound, it did not show that she had a cleft lip or palate. Sucking her thumb, an embryo. So they said, "Well, if she has one, it's not that bad," because she was sucking her thumb so hard. So when I had the C-section, my husband was in there, and I was afraid that I'd only known my husband for 7 months. So we got pregnant right away. So when she was born, the anesthesiologist said, "Oh, Teresa, she has a cleft lip and palate just like you." And I thought, "Oh no, my Henry is his name." I said, "Henry's gonna leave me, and but it'll just be the 2 of us because I'm gonna take care of her." And he must have seen my eyes or something, but he said, "I'm not gonna leave you. We'll do this together." And so from then on, I knew that it would be alright.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Wow. That's such a powerful story. That's so interesting that, like, they gave that indication. So my daughter Giselle was also she would always have her hands in her
Oh,
face, and she's not lip affected, she's only cleft palate affected, and but she would always have her hands in her face or, like, her hand, like, near her face, and, of course, we had no indication that she was gonna be cleft palate affected, but she sucks her thumb.
mhm.
And she still sucks her thumb, like, to this
Right.
day. And so I thought afterward, because after when they have repair, it's you don't want anything in your mouth, and you would think that she would break the habit of doing it, but no, she as soon as she was ready, like, repaired, she went back to sucking her thumb.
Right.
Yeah, I always say I don't wanna take it away. I know it's a bad habit, right? But I don't wanna take it away from her. I feel so bad because it's you didn't have anything else. You
Right.
couldn't have a pacifier. You couldn't breastfeed. Just have the
Right.
thumb.
I agree.
So, yeah, I think just thinking about when you yourself were growing up, was there like a specific moment that you had that you realized that you had a difference?
I remember my mother talking to a neighbor and telling her that, all the kids didn't like me because I looked different. And I overheard her say that, and I knew that the kids didn't like me, but I didn't know why. And then I just realized I was different after she said that. But I also knew I was different because the kids didn't play with me. So I already knew that, but she validated that. And
Mm,
I don't know if she knew I heard her, but I did hear her. And so I always after that, it was validation that I was different.
yeah. And how were you able to to cope with that? As seeing I think I've spoken to people in the past and they say, "We just didn't talk about it. It was just something that I just had to, like, deal with." And, yeah, how did you manage that growing
I
up?
didn't manage it at all. I came home crying every day, and one day my mom had told me, "Don't ever come home crying again." She said, "I'm tired of hearing it, and there's nothing I can do about it." So I was in the 4th grade, and I remember after that we moved to Memphis, Tennessee to a new school, and the kids hit me and they bullied me, and I went home and I tried not to cry, and she said, "What's wrong?" And I told her, and so they put me in a private school, which was even worse. But how I coped with it was as I got older, I started using drugs. When I was about when I met my husband, I got recovery then, but that's how I coped with it. I didn't.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
But I've been clean for 30 years now, and it was prescription drugs because back then the doctors gave you pain medication to cope to for pain, and so I
Mhm,
associated pain medication to coping, and so that's how I got
mhm.
addicted because I had so many
Yeah.
surgeries. Now they don't have that many surgeries, but back then I had a lot of surgery. And I'm sure Corinne did too.
I still have
Yeah,
surgeries.
I
I had
do.
surgery last year. Surgery just doesn't it keeps on
Yeah.
going. But I can relate a lot to your struggle growing up, Teresa. I went to private schools and it was hard.
Mhm.
I also lived in a town with a whole lot of wealthy families. So it was to not sound any disrespectful to peers growing up. It was one of the most challenging experiences
Mhm.
because it's hard when you don't fit in because you have a facial difference that's obvious, but then also to not be given the chance to fit in.
Mhm.
And then, if one person doesn't agree with something you're doing or who you are, then they just manifest into a whole lot of things. And it's already a lonely journey for those who don't have the right kind of support, if you will.
Right.
So when you're in school and you're getting bullied, it just manifests itself, like I said, into a more challenging journey.
And you gotta know who to
Yeah.
turn to. If you can't turn to your family, I didn't have anybody to turn to, so I didn't know how to cope. I was not given coping skills. And it
Yeah.
wasn't until I got into recovery that I learned coping skills. And, growing up, I just hung and cried. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
My parents
Yeah.
there. And my
When I got into high school, I ended up making some really awesome lifelong friends towards the end of my high school, which was great. But until that point, I had my cleft journey and it was when I had my surgeries. And then, I just like you, Teresa, it wasn't. And then when you have the failed surgeries pieces and you have no one to really decompress those feelings with, too. So,
Yeah. I wanted to say congratulations to Teresa on your sobriety. I know that's something that is really difficult to overcome, and some people they aren't able to.
yeah,
So,
I'm proud of you, too, Teresa, on that.
thank you.
Congratulations. It's I've got a lot of amazing close friends who've all had their own different sobriety journeys, and it's not easy and overcoming that's huge, Teresa.
Well, thank you.
yeah,
It's a lot
for
to have a
sure.
support group.
And you all talked about surgeries, which is one of the reasons that, as you shared, that you became addicted to pain medication. How many surgeries have you had so far?
I wanna say about 45. Now, somebody told me, "No, that's not right. Usually a cleft lip palate patient only has about 18 or 20." But I got so obsessed with the way I looked that I went looking for plastic surgery, and I wanted everything done I could possibly get because I couldn't accept myself. And so I've had a lot that was needed, a lot that was not needed. And but when I was in my 30s, I looked pretty darn good. And now I'm having my nose is drooping and things are falling down. And you can't just have surgery. I have excellent insurance. And so I've had about 45, I would say.
Wow. Wow, that's I can't it is like an unimaginable number. And you've shared too, Corinne, on your episode, I know, but you can throw your number out there if you
We're just talking about my cleft palate because I am a 6.5-year breast cancer survivor. So we're not going to talk about those surgeries. If we're just talking about cleft palate, between 25 and 30, I lost count after I got into the 25 range. I have an amazing plastic surgeon at Wake Forest who works with me, and my surgery had what before we had my episode. I was about to go into surgery in January, and I mean it it held some of my cleft, but I still have a small fistula gap in the back, in the center, more or less, and of my soft palate. Um, but I'm at the point where I'm only a couple of years from 40. Do I continue? Do I not? I'm seeing where the rest of it takes me on in terms of surgeries. But yeah, I'm hoping to not get to the 30 mark, but I also lost count. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm always
Yeah.
it's working right now to the extent that I have a soft palate I never had. And I work palatable speech operator and I can take it out and I can talk. I do have nasality with it out, but it's not to where it ever was before. I can actually live without it, but depending upon the air of the day or whatnot, I sound a little different, so I just wear it anyways. But I've always said if the journey ends with me having a roof in my mouth, then something worked for people behind me. They're working really hard on their palates. And if it doesn't, and I have my operator, I still have been able to help shape it. So no matter what happens in the future, it's still helping people who are in my situation. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
And so just in thinking about those surgeries, I know that you all met, I guess, in talking through some of the surgeries that you've experienced and just what you I know Teresa, you had difficulties with some insurance. Can you talk about first how you all met and how you connected?
Okay. We met at ClefCon, and she was telling me about her difficult surgery that she had getting approved, and she had to go before Anthem, and I have Anthem, and so really listened, and that's how we met. We were sitting around the table, and then I had an appointment in September. This was August, and I had already seen this would have been my third doctor to see to I have such a small mouth that food was falling out. And I was telling Corinne about it that I'd already get seen. I've been denied twice for them to fix it. And she told me that she would help me if I needed help and what she did, what she had to do, that she even went to Anthem board. And I said, dang, that is wild. How in the heck did you go to Anthem board of directors?
I was also 22 when I did that too.
That's amazing. So she told me that story, and I said, if I'm not approved for this third surgery, this third doctor, I will go. So I went to the third doctor on September the 5th, and I don't know what he did, but I told him, I said, you're the second different doctor I've gone to. And he said, what code did they use? I said, I don't even know. And I said, but please use good documentation. I said, I know you will, but I really need good documentation. A week later, they called and said it had been approved. And if I had given up, if I had met Corinne, I probably would have just, if they had denied me, I'd have probably given up. But meeting Corinne, I said, heck, if I have to, I'll get her help and I'll go to the board of director. Still with the inspiration, definitely. So I had my surgery
Yeah.
October 23rd, and I can now eat without food falling out of my mouth.
Oh, I love that. It's like taking your patient advocate with you, right? Like
Yeah.
you've got on your shoulder, it's like a little Corinne,
I,
right? Like, you better.
I'll take you to the board.
Oh yeah, I was ready. I'm like, I live in North Carolina. I can get down in Georgia. We can have some good conversations.
That's right.
But
I love that.
I love
Go
being
ahead.
able to help Teresa with that. That was, yeah, being able to help her with navigating and the fact that do not take no for an answer with insurance companies. I don't.
You should hire yourself out as an advocate for insurance companies. Anyone that has that much bravery to go before to even get an appointment. I don't know how you did it, but our hats off to you.
Persistence.
Yeah.
I literally made so many phone calls to them, and then my mother also delivered them a letter. And after quite a few phone calls and emails, we were able to get that meeting set up.
Uh,
And it was the CEO and the board of directors of Blue Cross Blue Shield in Minnesota.
wow. Awesome.
Yep. And I went in. That was the year where in 2009 I'd had 2 surgeries for a 3-part procedure to close my roof. And I had done 2 of the surgeries in 2009, and I was graduating from my undergrad in December 2009, and then I married my husband in 2009. And after I graduated, I had moved his insurance so I could have continuous coverage for my surgeries. And we went into that meeting, and they were trying to deny the 3rd-part surgery, which was the last 25% of the hard palate and all of the soft palate. And I couldn't wear an
Mm.
operator, so I was nasal. I couldn't really speak. I'd had a year without any sort of support in my roof, or at least about 8, 9 months of it, and it was a struggle. I couldn't talk very well. And when you think about our society, if you can't talk, it's very hard to
Mhm.
be in in public. And I went and sat down in that meeting and I said, okay, you've denied multiple times. I need this 3rd surgery. And I said, would you honestly have your mother, your sister, your daughter, your friend, your nephew, your son, whoever, would you honestly be okay with them living life sounding like this? And their jaws dropped because we're talking almost complete total nasality coming out of my nose and my mouth while talking to them. And I said, are you literally going to leave me like this? That your coverage policies want to discriminate on the fact that I sound like this and you think it's okay? Within 45 minutes of that meeting, which some of them actually needed Kleenex because they started crying. I'm assuming tears of compassion because within 45 minutes of that meeting, not only did they graciously cover all of my surgery, they also graciously reimbursed me for my deductible.
That's great.
Not
Jeez.
pay anything for that 3rd surgery, and I'm grateful for them for that. But I shouldn't have had to do that.
Mhm.
I know more about insurance codes than any average human being should know, and how to code things and how to say things and what documentation to need. I shouldn't have to know that. That's where I
Yeah. Does someone have the codes written somewhere? I feel like that should definitely be like a resource that I'm happy to create it, but I feel like I've heard someone that they have the code somewhere.
Yeah, I know I've got a few people I know in the club community that are coming up with the document for adult teams that work with adults with cleft palate 'cause that's hard to find. And then I also been talking to a few other people who are talking about the codes. The difficult thing about the codes is it's a different code for dental for cleft palate than it is for the code for closing a roof, than it is for the code for the nasal and the surgeries, and a different code for bone grafts and different codes. Everything is different code. So it makes it harder. But Laura, if you wanted to, I'd love to be able to make a one-stop document and talk to all the
Yes.
people I know that are working on different things and seeing if we can't come together. Because it is tricky. And if you have the wrong coding or you have the wrong wording, it can make or break whether or not you have your procedures covered. And then for me, the thing I ran into that, granted, my surgeries have been covered because again, they are going to continue to hear from me until they say yes. In order for me to ever even have a soft palate, I had to have liposuction. Anyone who knows me in real life knows that there's no reason I would ever have liposuction as a cosmetic piece. But insurance companies, they see liposuction, they think it's cosmetic. And no, it's to lengthen my palate. And in order for and that's the thing with ELSA is I wouldn't have to fight as much if ELSA gets passed and turn less Smiles Act because I'm not doing this because I think it's fun. I'm not waking up and going, I'm going to have surgeries the rest of my life because why not?
Mhm.
Not fair to us. And so demoralizing to have to know that you get another denial and then you have to fight it and then you have to know how to fight it. And for young families or individuals who aren't used to dealing with insurance companies, it's got to be overwhelming. I've lost my mind quite a few times trying to get them to say yes. And if you don't have the right advocacy with that, it's hard. Your voice gets lost.
Yeah, before we jump into the ELSA piece of this, what is for someone who's just listening today and that's received like a denial, what are some like quick tips that we could give for what they should do next if they receive a denial?
So if you're talking about palate repair, which is the bone graft that's a little different, but if you're looking at just palate repair, what needs to happen is the cleft surgeon, the plastic surgeon, needs to write a letter of medical necessity. They also have to find out if it's being coded medical necessary for cleft palate. And then they have to make sure that they are asking what is being worded in there. Is it saying lengthen the palate? Is it saying to close the palate? And those are the three big pieces. If you're looking at bone grafts, because I had a bone graft at 28 as well as when I was 12. And those were, I had to have my oral surgeon write a letter along with my cleft surgeon, my plastic surgeon, because they needed to know it was continuous medical coverage and continuous care. And when I had my palate closure all the way up, even when I was 17 and I had to have cleft surgery, they were like, you're almost 18. Why do you? And I had to literally, the doctor literally had to say, she has had 4 failed surgeries to close her palate. She needs this to happen. And also the other big thing is most insurance companies have a denial clause in age 19 unless you have continuous care. So they need to make sure that when they're getting those rejections, if it's an adult or if it's after age of 19, they need to be able to show proof that they've had continuous coverage with their doctors and insurance.
Yeah. And Teresa, when you were able to receive the care that you needed, did you have to respond to the insurance company or were you able to you just saw that another doctor and then just advocated a little bit more for yourself for what they needed to put into the system?
What I needed was a chin implant because I had lost one chin implant back in probably about 20 years ago due to it was causing pain and they had to take it out. Getting that coded as medically necessary, they felt it was plastic surgery. So what I did was I would just get really upset and I would forget it. And then life went on, and then I'd say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try again. And then they'd deny it. And then I said, I'm going to try one more time. And I went to a craniofacial plastic surgeon. And that's what did it. But he said, I don't think they'll pay for the chin. Do you want me to try? And I said, yes. And he said, okay. And they did it. I was really
Wow.
surprised. They also put skin into my lips to make them fuller so that he must have worded it away, which it worked, both medically and coding it. He lifted the chin out and made the lips fuller so that food wouldn't fall out of my mouth. So that was a lot of they were coding it as a chin implant and not medically necessary. I get it.
That medically necessary is huge. And then also if they say medically necessary for cleft palate or treatment of cleft palate is also a big piece. And I've had to make sure those have gotten in. Insurance companies typically won't speak to the patient. They'll say, we need to hear from the doctor.
Right.
So like with Blue Cross, what I did was I did the appeal form anyways and submitted it anyways. I didn't care. I was like, we're going to, because you have the appeal form, and have my doctor appeal, and then I submitted the appeal form as well, and then made sure they got everything. So they would hear from Blue Cross heard from me 2 different ways.
It like appealed all around.
I remember I appealed one time. I appealed myself. And I said, by the time you pay for me psychologically having to go to a psychiatrist and all that, they didn't care. They denied it.
Wow.
Yeah, I appealed one time. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
now.
Let's talk about the ELSA bill that you all are advocating for as well. First, I want to talk about what that is. What is ELSA? And then what updates do we have for what's happening next?
So, uh, National Foundation for Ectodermal Dysplasia was going to do a ELSA update on the 30th, but it was not. They were doing a delayed update now. Most recently, it passed the House in April 22, but it has not met a floor vote again in the Senate or been brought up for reintroduction in the House. We both, Teresa and I, both were in DC lobbying last July, and I plan to lobby again this coming July. Hopefully, Teresa will also see you there, and Laura,
Yeah.
to meet. But we did have, I know for North Carolina, Senator Tom Tillis wrote me a personal letter saying that he was in 100% support of ELSA. That was amazing to see. He sent me that letter before I even did the lobbying in DC. I reached out to him through his platform and he sent me a letter of support to that. And then I know that we had more well received messages when I met with other North Carolina representatives as well as Senator Ted Bunn. But it's not it hasn't reached a floor vote or reintroduction though.
Mm,
But it
Gotcha.
when passed, it will be able to alleviate the insurance difficulties for any child or adult born with a craniofacial um, abnormality, which is amazing and so needed for all of us so that we don't have to continue this journey. And families who are currently pregnant with, or in the future, families who will get pregnant with children with cleft palate or other craniofacial, they won't have to fight for that right of coverage.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. I think back to all the stress that I had in caring for my daughter and stuff, and it's not lost on me that, of course, everyone's heart is different, right? And my journey was difficult, but there are other people that have it even tougher than I did, and just even the difficulty that I had, I can't imagine also having to fight insurance. I can't fathom. Like, I can't fathom that, and so, yeah, we are going to continue to lobby for this to pass, and, yeah, I'll definitely be supporting as well, and, of course, hopefully, I hope to attend in July. Just one of the things I was thinking about too, as you all were talking about just the different surgeries, do you have any is there any feelings that you have going into another surgery, right? You're talking about 30 and 40 surgeries. Is there some, I wouldn't say trauma, but I don't know. For me, I just can't imagine having to go under anesthesia that many times. And I don't know, what is that feeling like going into when you have to go into another surgery?
It's for me because it's continuing to try to close the one piece that just, it keeps doing its own thing with my roof, not closing. It's hard in the fact that I have a amazing support system. So I'm never worried about that. And my husband, my kids, my friends, it's the support we have, even out here in North Carolina, it's amazing. And I appreciate all of them so much. They make it easier for me. But it's still almost like a going through the motions. And I like to be uh, cautiously optimistic and a realist.
Mhm.
All of it. I always hope that it's gonna be it, and I always going, okay, this is gonna be it. It's gonna be great because that is the best way going into it. But I also know that I'm gonna have to take some serious deep breaths if it ends up not working. And it's hard to because a couple of times it's completely worked and I've had a full complete soft palate, and then it's has not worked. It has failed in the middle of the day or woken up to it not working. And that's when I just continue to have to go back through okay, it didn't work, but I can do this. Everything's okay. It's not the end of the world. So it's a twofold trauma thing where it's the going into the surgery, but then if it's not going to work out in the end. So it's one of those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Teresa?
I haven't had problems that Corinne has had. I've always looked forward to it because to me, I would always think I'd wake up looking better. I do want to mention this, and I think it's very important. When I was growing up and I had a lot of surgeries, I always thought that when I woke up, I would look normal. And nobody ever told me any different. I thought the doctors held the power in their hands and that they just, when I woke up, I would look in the mirror and I would say that I wasn't normal. And I would think that the doctors didn't like me and they just didn't want to make me look normal. Anything I want to stress to parents too. I found out later that all these years I thought it was because they just didn't like me. What did I do to these doctors that they didn't like me? But it's what they have to work with. And I made sure my daughter knew that when she woke up, she would not look like she wouldn't look normal. She would look better, but not normal. I look forward to it. As I got older, I look forward to it. I don't have I don't have a sleep disorder only when I go to the dentist. But yes,
Yeah, and that maybe there are people that don't have clefts that have
right.
that too, so that don't like going to the dentist. Yeah. Yeah, no, I recently spoke with someone as well that, she also shared with her son, um, that was a really heavy and emotional episode, but she shared with him that he will always be different. He will always have a difference, but that is what makes him unique and special. And he shared with her that whenever I meet someone, they never forget me and they never forget my name and they never forget who I
Right.
am. And so I thought that was such a special perspective. And just in thinking about that as well, like how have you been able to build your confidence over time? I think that it takes a lot. Some people come on the podcast and of course I get questions all the time and I try to say it's just me. Like you don't have to be afraid. It's just but I have had people come on and say, "Oh my goodness, it took so much courage for me to do it and to actually share my story because nobody has ever asked me these questions like ever in my life." And how have you been able to build this confidence to share your story over
A lot of
time?
counseling. I had many years of counseling to learn to like myself. And then it doesn't mean that my husband loves me no matter what I look like, no matter how ugly I look in the morning.
Oh, that's special. That is so special.
Counseling as a child. Um, what helped me was actually when I was, I was about 19. Couple of my really good friends that I was friends with from, like I said, was in my high school. I went to a high school from 10th to 12th grade. I got three amazing lifelong friends from my time there. And I remember two of them when I was 19 were like, you should probably start talking about your cleft journey. And I'm like, oh, why? No one's ever cared.
Right.
And you're like, you should really talk about it and think it'll be good. And then when I met my husband when I was 20, he was the first, he took a huge interest um, in me and my club journey and my story and gave me the support that I needed to actually be okay with who I was. Cause growing up, it was, I looked different and I was bullied and I didn't really, no one seemed to care about me until I got older. And then from there, he was a huge encourager of me continuing my surgeries throughout. And and then from there, when we moved to North Carolina in 2021, I started trying to get into the club community, and I joined the Our Club Lip and Pelt Sport Group, and I'm an admin in it. And that kind of gave me kind of a, okay, now I'm in the community. And then from there, that's when I met Troy and then found out about the Top Community Advisory Council and then came from there. And so it was one of those, if you had asked me 20 years ago if I was going to be on a podcast right now talking about this, I would have said, no. Yeah. No, my story's not that interesting. And then the more I started talking about it, people are like, no, you actually have a really incredible story. And I've had at least, I don't know, 8, 9 people tell me I need to write a book about my life. And when the kids are out of the house, maybe I'll go that route. But right now, it's just my thing. But yeah, it's just, as I grew and started realizing that my story was not only impactful for others, but it can also make a difference on someone else's journey, where I was like, okay, I can do this. So I grew from there.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Are you all planning on having any additional surgeries?
I'm not
Mhm.
unless this one fails.
Are you done? Yeah.
You know, the door has never fully closed on that as long as I have a gap in my soft palate. So, you know, I didn't plan on any more surgeries after my failed surgical attempt in 2010. But then as I got older, not having a full roof in my mouth is what contributed to me needing a bone graft at 28, which was not planned, not expected. And I learned about 4 months before my surgery, I had to have that surgery. So that was good. And then when I moved out to North Carolina, I never, ever in my wildest dreams anticipated having success in my soft palate. And then I did.
Mm.
And then I was like, my journey is just deciding if it's going to continue. So I'm going to just see what the door is not closed. I still going to be doing my annual visits with my doctor at Wake Forest. And I'm a whole lot of this wasn't supposed to happen and this was unplanned. Keeps happening. But otherwise, I'm
Well,
content either way. I would love to not have to wear an obturator ever again. I've also been doing that for my entire life. So
Yeah. Maybe you'll miss it though if it's gone.
I didn't miss it for
No.
the month that my surgery worked in December 22, and I didn't miss it for the 2 weeks that worked back in January, but yeah, you know, I'm fine.
I I got you. And so just in closing, what has been the biggest lesson that you've learned along your journey? I'll start with you, Teresa, if you're ready.
already, the biggest journey, the biggest lesson I learned was to learn to love yourself. If I had loved myself early on, I think my life would have been different. How can you love yourself when everybody's against you, especially when you are against yourself? So that's my lesson, to learn to love yourself. And if I could, I would tell the Cleft moms to whatever they have to do, support whatever they have to do, get that child to learn to love themselves, because the whole world will bully you, and not the whole world, but a lot of people bully you and you don't feel loved. So that's mine.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Corinne.
You and Teresa already said it. Much like the podcast I did, which was all about learning to love yourself. I thought about it recently, actually, about if I could tell the younger version of myself anything, it's that she was stronger and braver than she thought. And she was also absolutely perfect in how she looked. There was nothing wrong with me then. There's nothing wrong with my appearance now.
Mhm.
And everything in my journey taught me that at the end of the day, the best advocate you have is your own voice and being able to say, I'm perfect the way I am. There's nothing that I would change about my journey. And if there's one thing that I could tell the moms in the groups or the dads in the groups or the relatives, it's there's it the more that you can take those photos of your child, the more that you can embrace that child, the more that you can show that you love them, the more they're going to learn to love who they are. And if you raise them where you take all these photos of their siblings and don't take a lot of them, they're going to notice those things. You want to embrace them fully for who they are, not who you thought they were going to be, not for who you want them to be. You love them for who they are and who they are right in front of you. That's going to go a long way in helping their confidence and being able to help them even socialize and make friends with peers.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to thank you both for, of course, humoring me and coming on the podcast and talking about, of course, Teresa, sharing your journey with us, very vulnerable story. And then also any updates that we have on ELSA and how others can advocate for themselves, especially in just these insurance companies that are completely ridiculous. And I can't even believe that we have to do this, but right, we represent those advocates and we want to make sure that people listen to the episode and can take things away with them that will be helpful and useful along their journey. So thank you both for joining me.
Thank you so much for having.
And yeah, thank you for having us. And then listeners can always write to their senators and their House representatives.
That's right.
Yes, and we'll have ways to support ELSA in the show notes. And just to close the show, just thank you so much for listening to the Our Forever Smiles Clef Mom Diaries and Support podcast. Be sure to subscribe and submit a review wherever you listen to podcasts. I hope that you've enjoyed this audio experience. Maybe you cried a little, laughed a little, but more importantly, I hope that you feel a little piece of reassurance and even joy in your journey. Talk to you next week.